Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. We're going to talk about how you can build your soil with what you already have. But first, a word from our good friends at Honey Bee Healthy.
Since 2000, Honey Bee Healthy Inc. has helped beekeepers maintain healthy and thriving hives, attracting pollinators to your garden. This year is as simple as hanging a hummingbird feeder with a mixture of sugar water and Honey Bee Healthy Original. Don't be alarmed to see birds, bees, and butterflies dining together at the feeder. Pollinators coexist peacefully. Honey Bee Healthy is offering 10% discount on an 8-ounce bottle of Honey Bee Healthy Original to the show's listeners. Enter discount code BEEGARDEN, that's BEEGARDEN, BEE Garden at checkout. For more information, mixing instructions, and a purchase, visit honeybeehealthy.com.
All the coupon codes you hear throughout the program can be found under the Money tab at our parent website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. So, we all want good soil, and we may not all have the ability to go purchase good compost from our local independent garden center. We may not have the funds. You may have a 2-acre field that you need to get your soil more better, or you just don't have the finances to invest a couple of $100 or, some instances, a couple of $1,000 and dozens of yards of compost. So what do you do?
So I'm going to start, because I'm just going to, I don't want to assume that this year is a wash at this point if you're trying to build your soil, but we are.
People build soil and build beds all year round.
Right. But I'm going to assume that you're building it for next year at this point. And I think that's a fair assumption.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about leaves. Leaves are a powerhouse of building your soil. Leaves are free. You can find them off of trees. In the fall, they will help add nutrients to your soil. It's a natural compost. Worms will come to your soil because they will be being fed leaves, and then the worms will come and aerate your soil. They bring nutrients to your soil. They add nutrients to your soil. So I feel that leaves are, to me, if I was like, hey, I'm trying to build my soil, that would be my top priority, especially if I was on a budget. I mean, I'm always on a budget, but like, if I was like, I really
trying to make $2 stretch like 20.
I really want to build my soil. I want the cheapest option. That's the cheapest option to me personally. I think is leaves. Coffee grounds too would be good to mix in, but then you have to typically go somewhere, figure out where to get the coffee grounds
and
from.
You can do that in bulk.
Yeah,
that can be done. There's big coffee shop chains that will give it free coffee grounds. The best ones are the local ones where they ask you to bring a bucket in, and when it's full, they'll call you.
Right.
5 gallons, real quick.
But that still is, if you're like, I don't want to have to drive somewhere. I just want to find a resource that I can use or I can create or whatever. Leaves would be my go-to. But with that being said, coffee grounds would be my second go-to because they also attract the worms. And you really cannot put unless you're dumping truckfuls of coffee grounds, you're not going to alter your soil chemistry.
It's going to be best to do this in a combination of different methods, and it's not necessarily, unless you're bringing compost in by the truckload, this may be a several-year process. Now, let's say you got sandy soil. What do? You add organic material like compost that you make or well-rotted manure from a reliable source in which is not feeding those animals chemicals through the feed or hay that can be a persistent herbicide like Grazon or that kills the broadleaves in the field but doesn't affect the grasses, and it doesn't affect the animal in which it's consuming, and it's still active once the animal has digested it, kicked it out the backside, and turned it into compost. You want more on that? Go to your favorite search engine and type in Killer Compost, Joe Lampel. He's got multiple articles and video about that type of topic. There are good sources that are out there. You just have to do some research in order to do that. So you want the soil to retain water and nutrient. Keep the plant roots in place, and you can work 3 or 4 inches of organic material into the soil each year. In whatever means, leaves or coffee grounds or a combination of manure or compost. If you can buy a little compost each year or make some, that will help build that soil up. Now, that's for sandy-ish soil. If you have clay soil, you want to aerate the soil. Get the air to it. Break it up. allow water and nutrients to reach the plant's roots. Organic matter, again, you're adding that organic matter. Clay soil has nutrient. It's just locked up in the soil. It's so dense.
Yeah, adding the organic matter is going to help break up that clay. It's also going to, again, bring the worms in. Any organic matter, if you feel like, okay, I dig in my soil, I barely see any worms, even if you think your soil is healthy and well draining, you want to add organic matter because it's going to invite the worms in. You don't want to bring worms in from the outside. Worms will bring themselves in. They also will move soil around from up to 8 feet deep. They produce 1/3 pound of their own waste per year?
Yes.
Yes. And worm castings, which is worm manure, whatever you want to call it, worm droppings, is also incredibly nutrient rich for your soil. So you want to work with your ecosystem, and by adding these compost materials to your soil, the worms will be like, hey, there's food here, and they're not going to overpopulate themselves. They will take care of themselves, and they will eat your organic matter. They will leave their waste, and they will circulate all of that in your soil.
Now, with clay soil, you can add gypsum. You can aerate the soil. You can avoid walking. And then on wet soil, that's any soil, whether you got good soil or not. Designated walk areas, permanent grow paths, don't intermix the two. Compaction can be detrimental to plants and the health of your soil if you continue to walk in the areas in which you're trying to grow. You're trying to grow a tomato plant or a pepper, or you're going to try to grow root crops and you're compressing that soil down. That is not good because water can't penetrate through very dense soil. So you may not necessarily have a clay issue. You may have a drainage issue because of compaction. I know years ago, where I grew up on the farm, they encouraged no-till planting, which meant you plant in the fields without disturbing the soil. You come in and spray chemicals to kill the vegetation, and you plant in there the seeds that won't be killed off by that chemical. But every 7 years, and that used to be the rule, I don't know if it is anymore, the 7th year it was recommended you go in and till that soil up very good, because it's had 7 years of compaction with tractors and sprayers and combines and everything else compacting that soil. So it was, take a sponge and, for example, and just stand on it for a long time. It's not going to do very good once you you take your foot off of it. So, and there is situations where it is going to be more effective time and money to build raised beds or go straw bale gardening rather than take the effort and time and materials in order to remitigate the soil in which you have or you've moved into and trying to start from scratch. The best scenario, the best situation, the best advice is go to soilsavvy.com and get a soil test to find out what you're dealing with, and then you can make the educational decision of, should I move forward and try to fix this soil issue, or is it better to put something down and then grow something as in a raised bed or container or straw bale garden?
Correct. And this will give you the answers. And then I just want to mention with, your building your soil and creating the soil you have always wanted. This, like people commonly think of this in their in-ground garden, but this could become a thing also in your raised bed. Maybe you, like Joey and I had built raised beds in 2020. We brought in compost from a local source.
Blue Ribbon Organics.
But over time, that does lose nutrients as well. And we would want to, at some point, either get a soil test or add things, whatever we need to do. So don't neglect, if you have raised beds, don't neglect that you might need some sort of soil care.
So, yes, the soil does deplete in nutrient, but by adding leaves each year, by encouraging the worms to come in this situation, the raised beds, you're letting nature giving nature the opportunity to kind of revitalize the soil. Yes, you're going to have to add some fertilizer or top dressing it with new compost. But if you do the balance right and you don't suck everything out of the soil and don't put anything back in, when you suck everything out and you don't put anything back in, then you've got a very large deficit in which you have to cross in order to get back to the point where things used to be. If you keep working the soil and feeding the soil each year organically, even through organic fertilizer to mitigate some of the deficiencies or keeping it from sucking everything out of the soil, that is also a benefit. Also rotating the crops. Peppers in one bed this year, tomatoes in a different bed. One for disease control, but two, so you're not growing tomatoes in the same bed for 37 years. Can you do that? Absolutely. If you are reintroducing nutrient by compost or rotted safe manure or leaves or a combination of multiple things in that bed over and over again. But when you do that, the resistance can be, you can cause problems for that plant if you continue to grow in the same area over and over again.
One thing I wanted to mention is you want to make sure that you do know where you're getting your compost or your manure, whatever it may be.
Killer compost, yes. I covered that.
Right. But I'm also talking about like organic compost, because sometimes it might be a situation where
free isn't good.
Like, especially if there's a city or municipality where they're like, come get the free compost that we've
third Saturday every month, all you can take.
So that's questionable. Also, Joy and I ran into a situation where we had a sponsor who gave us soil, and there was something that happened
prior to the radio show.
Yeah, something that happened along the line where there was a bad batch.
The bad batch, the formulation was bad. They still hadn't got it figured out, but they were keep making the batches because people was buying the product.
Right. So if this were to happen to
and their
you,
salesperson, you had to tell them how it actually works.
Right. So you might want to make sure, like, if you say that you purchased a whole truckload or whatever of compost, find out if there's some sort of
before you buy it, preferably.
Yeah, like, hey, if this is a bad batch, I've heard about bad batches.
Killer compost.
Yeah, or killer compost or whatever.
What's your source?
What's your source? Yeah.
What if it's a good dealer, if it's a good manufacturer, they're going to have no issue telling you, here's how it is made, here's the source, here's the material. When they go, well, it's good, trust us, back away, go somewhere else.
Absolutely. And you can find a lot of, typically if you're near a larger city, you do have options. So just keep that in mind.
Well, you do have options when it comes to dealing with those Japanese beetles that are now already flying around your yard.
If you're looking to successfully control beetles without damaging the environment, look no further than Beetle Gone from Phylum Bioproducts. Derived from a naturally occurring soil bacteria, Beetle Gone is the only organic solution that successfully controls beetle invaders. Just mix the powder with water and spray it on your plants. Once ingested, the target pests will stop feeding and die, and since it's an organic BT product, it's a great choice to use on your fruits and vegetables, in addition to your ornamental flowers and trees.
Not only does Beetle Gone work, but the best part about the product is it is safe to be used around beneficial insects such as ladybugs, butterflies, and bees, and has no water toxicity. That's Beetle Gone from BeetleGone.com. BeetleGone.com from the parent company of PhylumBioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com, but go to BeetleGone.com for the products that you need to control your yard.